Guys, this Brian Johnson video is going viral right now. We're going to react to it and share our thoughts. Let's get into it.
Rich and poor, whatever nation, it is the single thing that humans want. Nobody wants to die right now.
What have you done to change those brutal conditions in society? You're a person who has literally hundreds of millions of dollars and you spend $2 million every year.
So I will give you guys a little bit of context here. This interview is going viral, and this lady is also going viral online. And so I've been really excited to watch the rest of this. I watched the first part of it. Then I thought, we could watch the whole thing live here on stream. So we're going to do more reaction videos, but this gets very interesting.
Trying to look younger. And honestly, you look your age.
Hi, my name is Bryan Johnson. I've spent millions of dollars trying to reverse and slow down my biological aging. I've also swapped blood with my son. Today, I'm surrounded by 20 anti-aging skeptics. My first claim, ending death should be humanity's #1 objective.
So for real quick, and I'll try and let this play a little bit, but for those of you guys who don't know Brian Johnson, he was a guy who was born in a very religious family, grew up Mormon, ended up leaving the church and trying to go and make money. So he lived, when you're building a company, you don't have much money lying around. You're kind of on the brink of bankruptcy for a lot of it. And that's kind of where he was for a very long time. Ended up building a successful company. They got called Braintree. They got acquired by Venmo, and he had a huge waterfall of cash. And uh, he ended up changing and going viral within the past, I think, like year or two, for some of his very extreme. You could call them publicity stunts, but I really think it is his way of life, which you guys will hear in this discussion here. But he's got very nuanced and very unique views. I'm going to get into it much more later on, but I'm going to let this play. So this is his first claim, and the way the Jubilee works is you get 20 people around. The guy, in this case Brian Johnson, he gets to make a claim, and then whoever runs to the chair is able to debate him, discuss it first. So this is the claim. Whoever gets to the chair first is going to be able to discuss it with him. Speedy.
Hi, I'm Brighton.
Hi, Brighton.
Nice to meet you.
How you doing?
I'm doing
This guy looks like well put together. He's in shape. He seems respectful right off the bat.
well. First off, I want to say thank you so much for being here. I'm super honored to get the chance to talk to you. I hope this can be an opportunity where I can learn, where you can learn, and where we can teach the audience something. I'm not trying to prove you wrong, but I also don't want to misconstrue your words. So why do you think ending death should be humanity's top priority?
Because I think this moment we live in is really special. We are giving birth to super intelligence. We all know that AI is moving very quickly, and we don't quite know what exactly it is, but it's big and it's fast. And so the suggestion I have is that in this moment, when we're giving birth to superintelligence, that we are wise to transition our focus from a world where we value death to one where we say we are the first generation who won't die. That basically we're saying we value existence above all other things. So it's basically a contemplation of, if you're human on planet Earth in this part of the galaxy, what does intelligent life do when you're giving birth to superintelligence? We say existence. That is the #1 thing we care about.
Right. So you have a faith in AI to get us to reach the point where we can avoid death. And I would say there's no concrete evidence right now that we have that we can end death. You're kind of basing that off of the empirical data and the studies regarding AI's progression. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I've heard you say before that religion is a thing created to kind of make death okay and make the idea of death not as scary, and that humans are very clever. Wouldn't you say that your faith in AI's progression to end death is kind of that same argument, that same faith, just to avoid death as a whole?
Yeah, it's a good point. So what I say is that humans have always died. Up until this point, there's an end of life.
Right.
And when end of life happens, people have been coming up with reasons of why it's a good thing for hundreds of thousands of years.
Right.
And so the idea may be you'll be reincarnated, maybe there's a heaven, maybe that you will achieve immortality in what you do, and you'll be remembered for your deeds as a soldier or an entrepreneur or a poet or a politician. And so people have always sought a form of immortality. in deed or in this life or the afterlife. And so what I'm saying is this is actually the first time in human history where a reasonable person could say, we may be the first generation who won't die and not be left out of the room. Now, you're right, there is no evidence we can actually do it, but some biological species like a species of the jellyfish and the hydra have achieved immortality. So we know biology has solved for immortality, just not in the human species, but it has been solved for.
Right. So kind of to shift the topic a little bit, that is also based off the assumption that death is a bad thing. Because we don't know if death is a good thing, and I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong about the creations of religion, but we can't kind of make that decision ourselves whether death is a good or bad thing. I would say the creation of religion, if it is based off of a fear, it's less based off of fear of death and more based off of a fear of the unknown. And I would say that that's kind of two sides of the same coin when we're running away from death and we're trying to do everything we can to avoid death, but that's just because we don't know. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I'm saying that the reason why I would identify defeating death as humanity's #1 objective is because we have embraced it as part of our daily lives. When somebody stays up late and misses their bedtime, when they eat a pint of ice cream before bed, when they get very drunk, when they smoke cigarettes, when they eat toxic foods, those things are a form of death. When companies that make addictive algorithms, that make addictive foods, when they make those things, they're profiting off of your death. And so what I'm saying is we have built a world built on the profit of death and on people seeking death. That's the environment in which we're giving birth to superintelligence. That's what I'm identifying is that's the danger. We don't want to bring in our new computer companions, our new AI companions and say, we are a species that values death. We want to say, we are a species that values existence.
Right. So I've heard you say before, I think Lester Green said this and you said this, that existence is the highest virtue.
Yeah.
And I would argue that a positive existence is the highest virtue. And that would mean that our top priority should then be ending suffering so that we can promote a good and enjoyable life rather than just avoiding death.
Yeah, the challenge with saying a positive existence is that your version of positive may be different than someone else's positive. And when two humans agree on their versions of a given idea, they typically kill each other. Right. Or it results in very serious violence. And so don't die is actually the single thing that every human on the planet can agree to every second of every day. Everyone agrees, don't die right now.
But I would argue that it's not about not dying because why people have that feeling is because there's an urgency to live tomorrow because we die. I would argue that urgency comes out of the fact that our life ends. And that's why we want to continue to live is because we have that endpoint. And that's why tomorrow matters so much and I want to exist tomorrow. If death didn't exist, then we may not have that same feeling of I want to exist tomorrow.
Many people have looked back through history and you see that there were ideas about reality of things that people wanted to do or justified and norms change. For example, universal human rights is an example, right? Or ending of slavery. Those were ideas that people believed fervently in that time and place. Now they're gone. They're no longer part of our zeitgeist. And right now, death is seen as inevitable, it's acceptable, it's even desirable for some. That is an idea that is really going to be challenged in this moment.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Nice meeting you.
So I actually think that that guy was like the perfect guy to get up first. Like sometimes with Jubilee, you don't really know exactly like what you're gonna get. But that guy, he was very respectful. He got up there and he said, "Hey, I don't want to misconstrue your points. Can you lay it out?" I'm not sure if you guys have seen. Maybe we'll do it in the future. Go and check out the Jubilee with Charlie Kirk or some of these. I mean, even Jordan Peterson. You see it get very contentious, and I think that overall, the way that Bryan Johnson handles this conversation, he does a really good job. So that was the first guy. The one other thing I forgot to mention is that there's that clock there, and so that's the amount of time that they have for each topic. So once all the flags get raised, the next speaker is going to run up. They're going to discuss that exact same topic that you just saw the last guy discuss, and then later on in the episode, we're going to get to some other conversation topics. But back to the video.
Hey, how you doing?
You got up there.
All right, so my name is Sean. I'm a philosopher and author. I know you're into the philosophy game. So you mentioned the ending of slavery, the ending of some of these ideas, of some of these constructs, correct?
Yes.
So you're speaking about endings, right? And you're Your entire brand is don't die. So let's say a season never ended, summer for example, then what happens? What would happen conjecturally? What would happen to our planet?
Yeah, so hi, Sean.
Hi.
So I'm glad to speak to a philosopher. I'm an aspiring philosopher.
I think you made it, bro.
Yeah, this is really,
He does such a good job. Even just, it's like the little things. Like he acknowledges the person. I feel like you almost get back what you give, and he, you know, it's like I'm ready to get to the question, but first, hey Sean, how's it going? And he complimented that the dude's a philosopher. So I think that that is, if you want to change someone's opinion, first acknowledging or kind of taking, not starting from that argumentative layer, I think is really important. And it's just such a little nuance, but Bryan Johnson does it really well here because without that, that little thing, I think that people walked away from this actually being much more open to some of his ideas versus many of the other guests who come on Jubilee who are very smart, successful, and expert in one domain or the other. They come on and they haven't really convinced the people that they've been speaking with. So um,
look back
back
to
to the
Western
video.
thought, and you say we begin with Plato and Aristotle. We go through Christianity, medieval times, Renaissance, Enlightenment, modern day scientific era. There are these time periods with very big ideas like how we are, and we are due for a major change in ideology as a species. And right now, the thing that really runs the world is profit.
Correct.
We will do anything to make money. We'll do anything for status and power. That has some negative consequences in terms of what we build and how we do it, that in the pursuit of profit, people are willing to kill themselves, they're willing to die for it, they're willing to make other people die so that they can die. We just have this culture where we pursue death with this vigor, and we justify it. And so as we give birth to artificial intelligence, in this moment, the argument is we may want to sober up and say, is this the right vibe to introduce superintelligence? Or should we be open to this brand new possibility that actually we may have this possibility of being the first generation who won't die? Now, we don't know what happens after, but maybe it's our move to do that.
So there's two things there, right? So one is that we don't know what happens after, but we have all of this passion to get to this place that we don't know what's going to happen. And that's not completely true. So we do understand that if there's a species that doesn't go extinct, that none of them ever die, the planet literally becomes inhabitable. If there's bees that never die, what happens to the ecosystem? If there's a plant species that never dies, what happens to the ecosystem? So I understand there's this idea of like, oh, we're walking into this kind of glorious unknown where all of the ideas are at our fingertips. We've actually seen some of the evidence and some of the measurements, I guess you can say, as to what happens when a species doesn't continue to perish, to turn over. Part of like the way that the planet works, right, is the turnover. Summer becomes another season, winter becomes another season. Everything's in transformation. I guess, what do you say about that when you think about the fact that, let's say, Don't Die becomes this worldwide thing and no one wants to die? How does that not cause an inhabitability issue with our planet and our environment?
Yeah, you make a great point. And I think we've kind of been on this trajectory for a while where when we created vaccines, we started figuring out, can we actually buttress disease? When we figured out how to fight cancer, can you actually stop these accelerating diseases? So we've started to have the ability to engineer biology and our outside world with increasing precision. And that opens up all these possibilities to say, well, if we're trying to just cure, solve not dying today, can we solve for not dying tomorrow and the next day? So this is not an argument that we know what's going to happen over the next few hundred years. It's just to say that right now, this is potentially an existential moment for the human race. And we may want to do a vibe check. Are we also certain about this die thing? We may want to sober up and say, actually, what we really value is we just want to hang tight and see what happens as we enter this new era of being human.
And hanging tight. And
So one of the really interesting things about this discussion in particular is Bryan Johnson is he's got a lot of shock factor to him in the sense that he's done some crazy things. Like he was swapping blood with his son. There are a lot of hit pieces that have been written on him. But when you actually dive into some of his arguments, I mean, here the claim that they're discussing is ending death should be humanity's number one objective. If you just remove all of the hit pieces and you look at that claim, it's a bold claim, but it doesn't seem completely out there. And he does a very good job defending it. Number one objective is definitely bold. He's bringing in this conversation around artificial intelligence, and this is something that I'm gonna kind of expand on because this is something that I think a lot about building an AI and also looking at how that technology is progressing. One of the things that we've already seen come up, like this guy's brought it up and some of the others, is he's making a very bold claim outside of this one, which is that the technology that's coming down the pipeline is going to be powerful enough to do these crazy things, that it's going to completely change the entire landscape. And so, this guy, and then I think later on in the interview, they're talking about how, okay, well, you're assuming that the technology is going to get this good. How do you know that? And one of the things that I think he does very well, because he's making this big jump. I mean, like, oh, we're going to solve cancer. Oh, we're going to solve X, Y, or Z. This is a massive, massive type of claim. And he explains, look, I don't know, I don't have all the answers, but I believe that the evidence that we've done this in the past and that it's going to happen again in the future makes it compelling, and that this part of the argument is sound. And so I just wanted to bring that up because we're going to see it happen multiple times. And I think that Bryan, he and I are both very bullish on technology. And so when you're very bullish on technology, it can lead to some crazy claims. This one, I think, is a more stable one, though. I mean, I think that very few people can argue well that death is a good thing, although they bring up great points like, okay, well, along religious texts, along what makes life valuable, the fact that it has an ending, what happens if you have overpopulation or if death is, I mean, there are many claims that can be made against it, but I think Bryan Johnson does a very good job addressing these.
And seeing what the new era is going to be is one thing. A T-shirt that says "Don't die," and "Don't die" today is different than immortality.
Yes.
I'm sure you'd agree with that.
Exactly right.
And we all know that you have the means to kind of buy into this idea and this concept a little more deeply than probably the average person. I've heard you mention the 5 core power laws and how that's kind of what's accessible to everyone. And what I'm gathering is that there's going to be super wealthy people that can buy into the degree that you can, and everyone else gets a little bit healthier. Yeah. I guess how would you?
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is I used to eat fast food.
Right.
And I did it because it was just a thing we did in our culture. Mm-hmm. And fast food is really bad for you. Mm-hmm. And then I learned that these companies use the very best science to actually make you addicted. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm arguing is it's not for a few rich people. This is society is systematically killing itself.
Okay.
And I think that's a bad thing for everybody.
Society is systematically killing itself, and that's a bad thing for everyone. What do you feel about sovereignty and personal choice? Appreciate you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Hi, Bryan. My name is Chelsea.
Guys, this is about to get interesting. The first two guys seemed like they came up very open-minded, trying to have a conversation. And that is nice, especially because it does let you kind of get to some new areas. But gotta say, it's a lot more entertaining when there's someone who's it's almost like she's rage baiting. You guys are about to see. You guys are about to see. And in the future, I'll try and do these without having watched them before. I have watched the first half of this, and I think it's hilarious.
And I sit across from you today. I think I'm going to say the thing that a lot of people in this circle are thinking. It's easy when you're rich to care about not dying. Mm-hmm. Most people spend all day, every day, also caring about not dying because they're living paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Being poor is the story of humanity across the whole globe. I think listening to a man who doesn't know what it's like, how he's going to make rent next month, that to some of us, it feels pretty strange to hear you tell us that we're not focused on being alive. I think every person here is struggling to be alive every single day. I think most people in this country are struggling to be alive every single day. And when they smoke a cigarette, it's not about whether they want to die. It's about enjoying that moment. I'm talking to a man who publicly has said that you eat pureed food every day. And you're telling me, a normal human being who is like everyone else, struggling financially, and whatnot, how I should be living my life. And I think there's something that's really disconnected about that. I also think that it's really false of you to claim that people are focusing their life on dying, when really all of us are focusing on surviving. That's why we're here. Every one of us is here today because we're surviving. We don't go to McDonald's and think, oh, this is killing me. We go to McDonald's because we don't have enough time in the day to make dinner, because we can't afford to go to the grocery store and buy a $20 steak, because we can't shop at Erewhon and get $40 of strawberries, you know? So I think a lot of us are here wondering, what does you, a person who's rich, who doesn't know what struggle is like, and who also talks about the fact that you use your own son's blood, have to add to us as humanity?
Yeah. Hi, Chelsea.
Hey.
Yeah, I grew up with 4 other siblings, single mom. My mother made my clothes because we didn't have enough money for her to buy clothes for me. I went to school and I got made fun of because my clothes didn't fit and they were awkward. I didn't have money my entire life. I became an entrepreneur. I struggled for 14 years with no money whatsoever. So I understand what it feels like to have no money. I know what it feels like to be poor. So I've been through that. I also was chronically depressed for 10 years. I wanted to commit suicide desperately. I really would have committed suicide had it not been for my 3 kids. I felt like I had a responsibility to them. So I understand struggle, I understand pain. I was 50 pounds overweight. I was in a terrible shape. And so I understand what it's like to be that way. My argument is not to criticize you or anyone else. What I'm arguing is that companies have built their products to make you addicted and to make you ill. That's the core thing I'm trying to say, is that the most powerful economic engine in all of history, the American economic engine, has pointed itself at creating addictive foods and phones and social media and porn and junk food.
Do you not think that you're addicted to trying to stay alive? Do you not think that that's an addiction? Do you think not doing face fat, like fat injections in your face, constantly doing plastic surgery, do you not see that as an addiction yourself?
No, I view it as a pursuit, and we're trying to figure out how.
So if I change the name of my addictions to a pursuit, then maybe you'll think that it's socially acceptable?
I think that we share something in common, that neither one of us wants to die in this moment.
I mean, not today, but sometime, hopefully. Hopefully.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people would change their opinion and want to exist if the conditions of society were not so brutal. It's not fair for...
What have you done to change those brutal conditions in society? You're a person who has literally hundreds of millions of dollars, and you spend $2 million every year trying to look younger. And honestly, you look your age.
Yeah.
Like, that's the reality. And I'm not even the first person to say that. So what are you doing to make humanity better, really, other than pursuing your own vanity?
Yeah, well, I share everything I learn from all the scientific evidence with everybody for free.
But it's scientific evidence from your own body, right? So the study isn't terribly useful to the general population, because a black woman isn't going to have the same biometrics as a 48-year-old white man. So, I mean, in some ways, it's kind of a selfish pursuit that you're trying to make it seem like it's altruistic. I feel like that's the disingenuous part of this conversation, is that you're coming at it from an argument of altruism, but I see it, and I think a lot of people in this room today see it as selfishness and greed to try and hold on to life as much as you can. So much so that you bragged about using your teenage son's blood, which I have to tell you, history is not going to be kind about that. Nobody thinks about that woman in the Turkish royalty who bathed in handmaiden's blood and has a positive feeling about that. I don't think anyone is going to read about you in the future and be like, oh, wasn't that great? Wasn't that awesome that Bryan Johnson used his own teenage son's blood to make himself younger? No one's going to feel that way.
So 2 things. One is the evidence is based upon population level evidence. It's not on Bryan Johnson. It's not 48-year-old males. It's population level evidence, where you can make conclusions like 7 to 8 hours a night of sleep is good for.
And that's something that rich people get to do and poor people don't get to do. Do you think rich people are working overnight shifts? They're not.
Yeah, you need to give me a little space to respond.
Sure, of course.
Okay, so you did the other thing you were saying about my son's blood. So the reason that came about is my father is now in his early 70s. He has cognitive decline. He called me one day and he said, Bryan, I'm sorry.
Okay, the internet is hating on this woman. We do have to give her, we have to give credit where credit's due. Whether she's trying to be funny or not, she is very funny. I think that objectively, she's making me laugh. She's very funny. The other thing that is interesting about her is, even though, like, I completely disagree. Well, actually, I don't completely disagree with her points, but I don't agree with some of her positions. I would say between both of them, I would lean more heavily towards actually seeing the way seeing things the way that Bryan does. Although she probably represents what maybe I mean, I don't know what the general sense in society is in terms of like what percentage of people would agree with her versus agree with him, but she does have the ability to articulate her thoughts very quickly. She's speaking very, very quickly and she's jumping in. And I feel like he's not taking the bait because there's many things that she's doing things that for many people sitting across the table from her maybe could feel emotionally charging. She's talking about his son, talking about how he swaps blood, talking about well, in an invisible way, putting certain intentions on him and putting him in a box and saying he believes this and he's like this, even though in reality he's not those things. And he's calmly taking a step back and saying, understand, I've been poor for 14 years, kind of talking about what his actual lived experience has been. And he handles it really well. But uh, from a content perspective, this woman is gold. I'm loving this.
Suffering that I can't now complete basic work projects. I'm losing my mind and I'm terrified. I said, Dad, my team and I are doing research on cognitive decline. There's a new therapy of exchanging plasma. If it would be helpful to you, I'd be happy to do this. So I did the plasma exchange for my dad because he's losing his mind. Now my son said, hey, Bryan, Dad, if you're doing this, I'm happy to do it too. We'll make it a tri-generational thing. It wasn't me and my son, it was me doing it for my father. The press, of course, makes headlines of that, and they make you believe that I'm a nefarious actor. That's not the case.
But it's not really just the press doing that, because you walked into this room and that was one of the very first things you said about yourself. You wore it like a badge of honor. And I think that you do that because it's controversial. To sit there and say that that label is given to you by the press is a little bit disingenuous because you gave that label to yourself. And you did it to be shocking. You did it to make headlines yourself. So to put that onto the press, I actually think is really disingenuous. Thanks.
One other thing that I'm not sure if you guys realize, if you looked at all the flags that were up in the background, I think Jubilee plays around with, they understand that they're trying to get content and they know that this woman is content gold. And so they just are like, all right, we're going to let them finish their point. We're not going to cut them off. Because I think that they kind of let her go on a little bit at the end there. Yeah, Bane. So in the chat, Bane saying it's funny that she's so good at rage baiting, he's actually getting mad listening to her. Um, and yeah, I agree. She's a whether it's intentional or not, she is a professional rage baiter, I will say. Got to give her that.
Hi.
Brianna.
Hi, Brianna. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Bryan. So there's a few things that you've said. I just would like to touch on what the first thing is. Your focus about the industry, focusing on death. I do agree with the previous debater that the focus on living is also taken away from any true living. As a human, I value the experiences I have with my friends, with my partners, even the experiences of lessons learned in life, which sometimes do include fast food, sometimes do include those things that you were doing to your body and damaged yourself. However, looking back, I can't see where it is that you yourself have found this fixation that death is the total destruction. We as humans have always kind of chose destruction, and then we value life through that. And I wonder what your position is when I bring these points to you.
I think when death is inevitable, people YOLO their way to death. Like I might as well then do the following things, the following debaucherous things because it makes me feel something. And that's been something we've done. We've basically made these debaucherous acts of death virtues, where it's seen as a positive thing in someone's life. And so an accusation I get all the time is like, Bryan, you're not living. And why am I not living? Because I'm not staying up late, and I'm not drinking alcohol, and I'm not smoking, I'm not eating fast food. And they're like, you're not living, you're missing out on life.
Right.
And I try to explain that that's really a misconception that we all know. Once you eat a fast food meal, you feel terrible. No one's winning in doing that. And so I'm saying that right now, this is a special moment. If we weren't giving birth to superintelligence, if that wasn't some kind of things happening in the moment, I'd say like, sure, like do your thing, whatever. This moment is special. And when we're bringing that intelligence into the world, when we value death, we're sending the wrong signals as a species. we treat planet Earth the same way we treat our bodies. So we are a species that has embraced and seeks after death, and it ruins our health, our individual health, our societal health. I mean, for example, you look at the current number of people on antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds.
Right.
You look at people who are lonely, the suicide rates. We are a sick society. And that to me is what people are starting to say, let's celebrate that, that's life. And I'm saying that is not life. Like, this is not a good situation. Everyone's in pain and suffering. So let's address that.
So I absolutely agree with you, actually. However, what I do see, again, is that through these things of comfort, as you kind of called them, right? We do that because we're still living in between those times. Those bursts of moments that we have with people, we've chosen to drink. Yes. Do I agree that that's good? No. I'm like, don't do it. You don't feel good the next day.
Right.
But the connection is how we joke about that, how we all kind of iron sharpens iron, and we learn from that.
Yeah.
We pass those lessons on, and we continue to grow as a society. One thing that you mentioned was nature. I love that because I really struggled through your conversation earlier with the prior debater about life and the philosophical points of it. Polarity is a science that we adhere to. There has to be polarity in this process. I think it was described more as like a seasonal, right? However, for me, it's the polarity. Without death, you don't know life. And if we only have life continuing, that process, such as you mentioned, the earth, would be interrupted. I think that that is something that is not worth the unmeasurable time that we would need to even determine whether that's something that we can do. I also feel that it
Thank you. My next claim is that we may be the first generation who won't die.
All right, claim number 2. So in the chat, put if you end up agreeing with this first claim. So the first claim was that preventing death should be humanity's #1 objective. His second one is we might be the first generation to not die. This is, of course, a very, very bold claim. Let's hear what he has to say.
How you doing?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Nice to finally meet you.
Likewise.
So, let's start it off by saying I'm glad that you chose life. You were trying to unalive yourself before, right?
That's right.
What was the purpose of that? What was going on psychologically that got you to that point?
Yeah, man, I wasn't sleeping. I was overweight. I was stressed out of my mind. I was up all night with my kids. I was leaving my born religion. I was having challenges with my partner. Like, life was just falling apart. I had no money. I was in debt. It was a really challenging moment, and I didn't know where to go to find hope.
So what hope did you find? Because I heard that you actually had a conversation with an interviewer that you stated in a book that you read by Robert, what was his last name?
Oh, Albert Camus. Yeah,
Albert Camus.
yeah, the philosopher, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So what was it in his book that gave you the hope, again, that faith?
He basically said that he explored all of existential philosophy, and he said there really is no meaning to life. That once you realize that, it's just play. Like, you're happy that you exist, and the fact that we exist, let's just make the most of it.
Right.
And I felt relieved that I didn't need to have an answer or a reason, that I find myself conscious. I don't know why. It's kind of a weird experience, but trying to do my very best with what I have.
Conscious. So with your consciousness, you decided to live,
Yes.
right? So you still found a meaning though, right?
Yes, that's a good point. And I guess, like, this is the thing that we are a species that loves meaning and purpose.
Right.
And at that moment, I didn't really have a purpose or a meaning. And it was trying to find reconciliation that just being alive is okay.
Do you believe that the purpose was already there, you just needed to tap in?
Yeah, I think purpose is probably abundant, that we can all find it, and it drives us. But
Do you believe in choice?
I do.
So do you believe people have the choice to not want to live too?
Yes.
And they can choose that?
Yes.
So what do you do about those people?
Give them choice.
You give them a choice.
Yeah.
So if they want to, let's say they were in your position and they wanted to live more, what do you say about them? I mean, to not live more, what do you say about them?
That's their choice.
Do you believe that a person could also perish and a new entity can grow and evolve as well as the information that you're getting? So let's just say we're living And if we continue to keep living, there's no new information. Do you believe that?
Sure.
Okay, so with there's new information, don't you think that something eventually needs to perish so something new can grow?
Not always. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think that we are in this new era where we will be able to extend our lifespans to degrees which would maybe surprise us, and that when that happens, we will all just take it day by day, and our norms will evolve, and we'll naturally get accustomed to 100-year lifespans, 150, 200. That's a possibility. Not saying it's guaranteed, but
Well, here's the thing. You're 49, 8?
48.
48. I'm 41,
Yeah,
right? I don't look it, right?
you look great. Good job.
So, thank you. I smoke. I don't drink no more. I barely sleep.
Yeah,
Like, what
yeah.
suggestions?
I'm
Because
not-
I'm okay.
Yeah.
You all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Good to see you, man.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm really, really enjoying these conversations. Brian looks like he's genuinely happy to be chatting with these people too. Um, and I feel like the guests that they got for this Jubilee episode are a little bit more open-minded. I feel like they're much more open-minded to having their minds changed than some other Jubilee episodes. But on the topic here, you know, I'll give my thoughts on this, and then we can dive to the next one. So it sounds like an absolutely crazy claim, right? Like we might be the first generation to not die. This is going under the assumption that medical technology gets way better. It assumes that we learn a lot more about how the universe works. Because in reality, if you truly think about it, we like are so stupid, like in terms of our understanding of the world, like objectively speaking, even the smartest people of all time, just in terms of your total capacity based on the limitations of your biology to understand the world, to process information, we are unbelievably limited. And there's a reason why we aren't an interplanetary species. There's a reason why we don't have the ability to go and travel to all these places that are many light years away. And so if we take a step back and realize, okay, we're very dumb and we're very limited and we don't have the ability to solve a lot of these big problems. And there are some other species out there that have solved for regenerative uh, extension of their lifespans, but we clearly, with our biology, have not figured that out yet. We have, however, figured out how to significantly extend our lifespans, even to this day, right? You know, in the past, people would be dying by the age of 40. These guys look great, you know, both over the age of what would have been considered a grandparent in the past. So what I'm getting at here is humans are very limited because of like, we don't have a lot of memory. We have very limited bandwidth in terms of getting ideas out, and then transitioning ideas between one another. If I want to teach you something or you want to teach me something, there's the very slow process of us having to have the idea, communicate that thought, have you remember it, and then be able to do whatever you do with that information. So I promise this all gets back to this thing. We might be the first generation to not die. And so if you think about it, with the advent, and this is actually Brian's point, it's crazy because I agree with a lot of the things he's saying, but it's because of what I'm explaining right now. With the exponential advancement that you're seeing, you're already seeing this in artificial intelligence, seeing the models like ChatGPT go from toddler or middle school level intelligence all the way past Stanford PhD level intelligence, just in the span of a couple of years. You might be thinking, how the heck is this happening? Why is this happening? Well, I'll tell you. The reason why is because when you train these large language models, when you basically try and make AI better, the way that you go about doing that is you give it more data, and then you have to have more data processing infrastructure to make the models better. So what do I mean by this? You need data centers, and you need those data centers and more compute. And so you can think about it. More compute equals more intelligence. We've been seeing more compute coming online. We see billions and billions and billions of dollars. So the compute, the intelligence that's about to come online is over 10x the intelligence that we have today. And that's just coming online within the next 5 years, right? 5 to 10 years. 10 years is very conservative based on how much money you see being invested. So what I'm getting at is you have massive improvements in intelligence coming, and real improvements to the point that it's hard for us to wrap your head around, right? It's very hard for the human mind for you to think in exponentials. But when you're on an exponential curve and everything's below your level of intelligence, you don't really notice much of a difference. We hit a massive turning point with these large language models, AI, uh, with ChatGPT, and now the models that are coming out now, where all the other exponential improvements were far below human intelligence. Now that it's surpassed human intelligence, it becomes much more obvious, and it actually makes a huge difference to how you understand the world. I mean, think about what you can do now with ChatGPT. Smarter than any person on the planet, smarter than any group of people on the planet. And you have that at your fingertips. You can get anything done. Now, every single person around the world has at your fingertips teams of smarter intelligence than any human that's ever lived to go and take care of anything and do anything. And so that is obviously got a massive multiplier effect in terms of the productive output of the society, how fast you can discover new science, new diseases. And let's just take a step back and you put this in the here and now, right now. You might think, okay, well, how does this actually happen? Like, what does this actually look like? And I'll explain that to you right now. Imagine a world where ChatGPT 5 today is unbelievably stupid, right? Unbelievably stupid. A single person like you sitting there could give a prompt, and it's a prompt to discover new science, discover how the world works, how to extend on these different types of ways in which, I mean, literally anything, how to cure cancer, right? How to cure any disease, how to travel and make uh, the infrastructure work. So if you're trying to travel further into space and become a spacefaring civilization, any prompt, if you give that prompt to today's models, they could give you hypotheses. They would have no idea. The context window in AI is not big enough to be able to go and solve these problems. Pre-AI, you would have had to find a bunch of the smartest people in the world that had domain expertise in all of these areas. And then they'd have to coordinate and chat and then piece it together and then make the discovery. So it would have been super slow to do pre-AI because you would have had to find all the smartest people in the world in these areas, get them together, have them work together, and then solve things together. Today, I mean, with AI now, you're already seeing compound because now an individual who goes to and explores this idea and is smart enough to piece everything together, it's almost like they have a team of these very smart people to piece together and solve these problems. But let me put you into the future here. In the future, when you have longer context windows and AI can actually go all the way and solve these problems and spend more time in compute to solve an individual prompt, that individual now doesn't need to spend as much time, piece as many things together. They could single shot prompt massive solutions to these things that realistically no one had ever gone and discovered and tried solving before. And eventually you reach a world where the technology is moving so fast and the tools at everyone's fingertips is so powerful that you can go and discover new things. And then that just compounds where it gets very difficult. Like that world is not too far away, but it gets very difficult for you to truly understand and predict the ramifications of every single person in the world being able to, on a whim, just discover and cure and create different things. And what I just explained to you is one of the reasons why I believe I tried watching this yesterday on stream, but Elon Musk was talking about how it was Elon and Jensen, CEO. You guys know who these guys, CEO of NVIDIA, Elon Musk, with Tesla and all those. They're talking. And Elon, I think, made a bold prediction where he said, work is going to be optional in 20 years. And when you hear a claim like this, Elon's made many very bold claims. But when you hear a claim like this, you think, how in the fuck is this going to happen? How does this happen? But then you realize that, oh, when you live in this world where all of these technologies converge and things move at this exponential fast rate, and you live in the world that I kind of just explained to you, you realize this is crazy. The amount that you can produce, the amount that can get done is unbelievable. And this is why when I talk about a need for a changing fabric of society, it's like, are we ready? This is the point that Bryan Johnson's making. He's saying, are we ready to introduce superhuman intelligence into this world that we have today? I believe the answer is no. I think that when you introduce a level of intelligence, imagine that we knew for a fact that aliens were going to arrive on the planet in the next 5 years. We knew it for a fact. And those aliens were going to be 100 times smarter than the smartest humans that have ever lived. And they're going to be able to communicate with each other instantly. And they're going to have perfect memory. And all of these things, if you knew that for a fact, you would probably try and stop it. You would probably try and say, okay, well, we don't want to deal with these aliens because they're probably going to fuck us up. Well, I can tell you this. We know for a fact that we are building this level of intelligence. But the only difference here is that we're not needing to stop it from coming to the planet. We are actively on this planet building for it, putting in billions and billions and billions of dollars and building out all the infrastructure and the data centers to do this. So this is a whole nother conversation, but tying it back to this claim on why we might be the first generation to not die, I don't think it's a crazy claim. I think that it is very, very possible for this level of intelligence, like ants to humans does not even do the level of intelligence gap in the future. It doesn't do it justice. Like us compared to ants is so much closer in intelligence than what it's going to be from us compared to superhuman intelligence. It's not even close, right? So the big question to solve this question that's posed here is, do you believe that superhuman intelligence 100 times smarter than us would be able to solve these types of questions? And my bet would be yes. All right.
Hey, Bryan. How you doing?
Aiden, good to meet you.
That was a powerful takeoff.
I appreciate it.
You
Must
did
be doing something.
Track or something, no?
Yeah, not tracking my health, unfortunately.
Okay.
But, so I would, before I get into what I disagree with you about your claim on, I would like for you to elaborate what do you mean by, or actually, I would hypothesize that the reason you say we may be the first generation to not exist is kind of what you talked about a little previously.
Yeah.
On super intelligence. Is that kind of accurate, or do you think that there's another reason that humanity would be able to defeat death in this generation?
That's right. Yeah, I think artificial intelligence will be the key. Yes.
Okay. So three things off the top of my head. The first is I don't actually think that science is progressing at the rate at which you would say that it is. Mm-hmm. The second is I don't think that not dying is a good will to live. Mm-hmm. Meaning, mm-hmm. I think that when you start to say, my life's purpose is to keep living, then you lose your will to live. But I'll go a little bit into the first one first. The first reason that I don't think science is progressing as fast as we say it is, and I don't think that superintelligence will play into a role of this, but if you look at, for example, health trends, like you would be a vegan, right? Is that correct?
I don't actually subscribe to that word.
Okay.
I follow the evidence.
Tell me about your diet. What do you eat?
A lot of legumes,
Okay.
extra virgin olive oil, berries, nuts, seeds.
What do you think about the keto diet, for example?
Great. Just anyone can do anything they want. I mean, anyone can do anything they want. Just measure your biomarkers and make sure your body's happy. But I don't subscribe to the idea of carnivore versus vegan or keto versus paleo. I think they're too abstract. The more relevant thing is to eat what you want, measure your body, and see if your body's happy.
So, okay, then we don't necessarily have to talk about diet, but the rate at which science is progressing, if you look at, and this is the case for not just health, this is the case for a lot of different areas of study, is that there is so much that we have yet to discover. I'll give you an example. I would probably say that for most people, and I think that we could probably agree on this, like not eating fruits, vegetables, legumes, for example, would probably not be the best. Like if you were just to eat ground beef all day, would that be probably like for the 90% of the population, that probably wouldn't be a good health choice, right?
You know, again, I'm impartial, so
Okay.
people can do whatever they want.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
If you look at lots of health trends from a couple of years back, you know, like 6, 7 years ago, you had or even 10 years ago, you had like the keto diet. You had lots of these different diets, but also studies are constantly being published.
Yeah.
So, and it's very difficult to say how much of science we have yet to explore. I did plug this into like ChatGPT the other day, and they said like 80 to 90% of science has yet to be discovered.
That's right.
So if you're coming from the mind of we will be the first generation not to die, but we've only explored 10% of what is actually going to keep you healthy, how do you know that 10 years from now, what you're doing for your regimen is going to be completely detrimental?
Yeah. How exciting is that?
What do you mean?
It's great, right?
Why?
It means we have this frontier of new knowledge that we're about to discover. I mean,
Correct.
nothing would make me happier. This is why this moment is so exciting. It's
Correct.
why I think it warrants suspending all of our ideas. Is we stand on the precipice of this amazing new era where we may discover all these things which are dramatically going to improve our health.
So take, for example, the drug ripamycin. I believe you were taking ripamycin.
I
is
was,
that-
yes.
Okay. So how long are you taking that for?
5 years.
Okay. And why'd you stop taking it?
The side effect profile and some new evidence that came out.
Okay. That new evidence having to do with like cholesterol and ulcers, et cetera, right?
Using methylation clocks to look at speed of aging.
Right, exactly. So how do you know that everything that you're doing right now in your regimen is not going to be completely different from 20 years ago? 20 years
Yeah,
from now.
yeah.
I don't think that we will be able to say that with certainty. And so maybe you could make the claim that 5 generations from now, we might be able to extend our health maybe to 120, 200 years.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's possible, but I think that's an entirely different claim.
I think you're right. I don't think
Okay. Awesome.
Good
Great.
to see
Bob.
you.
Thanks.
Did you just jump?
I did. I did track in
How
high
you
school.
doing? Good to see you.
Pleasure to meet you. And honestly, it's an honor and pleasure to connect with you in person. I first watched your docu a couple years ago when it came out. I even took screenshots of everything you were doing, and I was like, what is this guy doing? It really opened my mind to what death could be versus just what the Bible says. I want to talk more about the structure of what world we'd have to live in order for this to be doable. Is this something that you're saying everyone should be doing, or is this just a choice? You have blueprint if you want to live longer, you know, or if you don't, you can just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like when the United States of America became a country, we said, we like the idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It was this new idea of like, how does a society build itself? And what I'm saying now is it's kind of like a rebirth for the human race. What does it mean to exist? What do we value? What do we do? And I'm saying that this is a moment where we can have a new imagination about our existence we've never had before. And that is that we may be the first generation who won't die. And now when that happens, it causes us to reflect on everything we do in our lives now. And so, you know, it's really like a reflective moment. I'm just saying it's really this new opening, and it's a new way to think about ourselves.
Okay. So I come from the personal training, strength and conditioning world. I tell my clients it's all about health span, longevity. You want to have proper nutrition, proper sleep. You want to resistance train as well.
Yeah.
Those are all great. But if we are all to live forever, how does then that look like population-wise?
Yeah.
Like, is everyone just gonna, the population is just gonna increase? We can barely even take care of the planet we live in. We're looking at living in Mars. How would we then share? What is your perspective in that world? And also religion.
Yeah.
You know, 85% of the world is religious: Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, and death is such a big cornerstone of that. I know you were Mormon as well, and you ran away from that. So, what are your thoughts on, I guess, the structure of that when most of the world is so around death?
Yeah, I mean, first is I'm not arguing for immortality. I'm arguing for don't die. I'm arguing that we say existence is the highest virtue, and that we build society according to that. 2 is that oftentimes the problems we think are problems are not the problems that actually become the problems. So for example, in New York, horses were the primary mode of transportation, and there was horse manure all over New York. It was in the Hudson River, it was on the streets. It was such a gigantic problem, people were panicking. They said, what do we do to solve this problem? So Henry Ford built the Model T, then cars came and horse manure went away because horses went away. So horse manure was not actually a problem because the Model T solved that problem. Now, the Model T created other problems. We have roads and pollution. So sometimes the things we think are going to be the biggest challenges turn out to not be the challenge. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to the population. Right now, we have a challenge where we have a population collapse. So we're actually on the opposite side of that. Our fertility markers have dropped by 50% over the past 50 years. So if anything, we have a really serious worry about our population. So this comes and goes. Sometimes we are worried on one side or the other, but this is really a moment where I'm saying that as much as we can, we want to embrace existence. That's the thing that's most precious for everybody.
Okay. Another question. Are you happy?
I've never been happier in my entire life, and that is a genuine answer. Okay. And this is what I really want to be with you on this. I wish somebody would have been in my life to say, let me give you some basic tips on how to achieve good sleep, how to avoid bad foods, how to have the willpower to these things. I didn't have that in my life, and that's really the role I'm trying to play in people's lives is the good friend that is there to encourage them to make good life choices.
Got it. Thank you. Pleasure to meet you.
Good to see you.
My name's Alec.
Hi, Alec.
I'm pretty good. So I could be getting over my head talking about this, but I saw that you had some data where you were like, I have the lungs of a 30-something-year-old or heart of a 20, right? Can you elaborate first on that specific thing that I'm talking about?
Yeah, so the idea is that if you have a 90-year-old person next to a 10-year-old person, you know who's 90 and who's 10.
Sure.
Based upon the quality of their skin and their general mobility. And so there's an idea of biological age and chronological age. And so, for example, I'm 48, but my left ear is age 64.
Why your left ear? Is that just an example or just?
Example, yeah, exactly. So I have mild to moderate hearing loss in my left ear because I listened to loud music as a kid and I also shot guns without hearing protection.
Right.
And so that dramatically ages my left ear. So everything I talk about, I'm trying to say if you do blank, poor sleep or eat bad food or doom scroll right before bed.
Yeah, it could affect certain things.
Yeah, exactly. It accelerates aging in the body.
So I can agree with you on every single body part except for the brain.
Okay.
I don't think, you said we're going to have the first person's, we're the first generation where we're going to live forever, or there could be someone here that would live forever. I don't agree with that because I don't think the science is there to either replace a brain, right? Especially because I think I'm not a religious person. I don't think you are either. I think the brain is what makes us who we are, not our soul. I don't know. If you needed a brain transplant, I don't think we can do that. We can't take your brain and put it somewhere. Yeah. But even if we did, that's a whole. Is that actually Bryan? Is it not? So how are you going to stop the brain from deteriorating? I don't think you can do that. There is no science that can do that.
Yeah, your point is valid, and that is correct. On current science, we do not know how to do that. Also, throughout history is a story of impossible things becoming possible.
Okay.
And so while we can't see a path now, I don't rule it out, that we may find a path to be able to restore brain capacity or reverse the aging of the brain. Now, we don't know, again, how to do it, but I think it's worth us saying, this is really important, we should try.
I think there's a difference between saying it's really important and we should try versus, oh yeah, it is, Yeah. I know the claim technically said there may be, so you're kind of leaving yourself a little wiggle room, but my claim would be it's not. I know that technology is always advancing, but I mean, if my brain got separated, the spinal cord and the brain, you couldn't possibly reconnect that in a way where it would work.
Yeah.
So once your brain goes, I think you're done. As far as I know, there's no way to stop a brain from aging.
Yeah, and your voice is good, right? Criticism's good. And that's how science moves forward. And so there's going to be people who don't believe it, and there are people who try to do it, and there's going to be the continuum. So what I'm saying is, whether we believe it or not, science is going to move forward, and it may actually do it.
May actually do it. I guess I can't really say anything else, but yeah. All right, well, yeah, GG.
Thanks.
All right, so the claim is